What kind of mother could harm the very children she brought into this world, and then flee across oceans to escape justice? This question haunts every detail of the tragic case of Kimberlee Singler, a mother accused of turning her own home into a scene of unthinkable horror before vanishing in a desperate attempt to evade accountability. What drove her to such a devastating act, and how could this family's story spiral into such darkness? If uncovering the truth behind cases like these matters to you, make sure to subscribe. Join us in seeking justice for the voiceless and uncovering the stories that demand to be told. In the early hours of December 19, 2023, a chilling 911 call was made from Kimberlee Singler's residence in Colorado Springs. The call, reporting a burglary, brought officers to the Palomino Ranch Point apartment complex at approximately 12:29 a.m. What they encountered was a scene so horrific that it would haunt even the most seasoned first responders. Inside the apartment, police discovered the lifeless bodies of 9-year-old Elianna Ellie Wentz and 7-year-old Aden Wentz, lying side by side in their bedroom. Both children had been shot in the head and bore stab wounds to their necks. Nearby, Kimberlee's 11-year-old daughter, identified only by her initials M.W., was found bleeding heavily from stab wounds to her neck. Kimberlee herself was injured, with superficial knife wounds to her wrists and neck, and both mother and surviving daughter were rushed to the hospital. The initial report of a burglary quickly unraveled. There were no signs of forced entry, and the scene suggested something far more sinister. Investigators found a blood-stained handgun and knife within the home, along with live ammunition and spent cartridges in a nearby closet. Empty bottles of sleeping pills were also recovered, hinting at a deliberate and premeditated act. As detectives pieced together the evidence, a narrative of betrayal and desperation emerged. According to M.W., her mother had instructed the children to drink milk laced with a powdery substance, telling them it was medicine. Kimberlee then led them into the bedroom one by one, instructing them to close their eyes. When it was M.W.'s turn, she pleaded for her life as her mother slashed her neck, but Kimberlee attacked her again. Throughout the night, Kimberlee allegedly invoked divine reasoning, telling M.W. that God was telling her to do it, and that their father would take them away if she didn't act. This twisted rationale revealed the depth of Kimberlee's psychological state, as well as the driving force behind her actions, a desperate, warped attempt to keep her children from their father. By the time the 911 call was placed, it was clear the burglary narrative was a fabrication, an attempt to deflect suspicion. However, evidence at the scene, combined with M.W.'s testimony, painted a grim and undeniable picture. To understand what led Kimberlee Singler to commit such an unfathomable act, we must dig into the bitter custody battle between her and her ex-husband, Kevin Wentz. This legal feud, which spanned years, was marked by escalating tension, accusations, and, ultimately, tragedy. Their marriage, which began in 2011, was marked by a seemingly normal start, but cracks began to show as the years went on. Kimberlee and Kevin divorced in 2020 after separating in 2018. From the onset, custody over their 3 children, Elianna, Aden, and M.W., became the crux of their disputes. Kimberlee alleged child abuse and domestic violence against Kevin, but after a thorough investigation and hearings, the court found no merit to her claims. Despite the court's ruling, Kimberlee's resentment only deepened. The situation took a darker turn in 2023. Kimberlee filed for a temporary protection order in September, accusing Kevin of brandishing a knife at her during a custody exchange. Initially granted, the order was later rescinded after the court found no evidence to support her claims. This decision left Kimberlee enraged and even more determined to keep the children away from their father. In November 2023, Kevin was granted additional parenting time with the children, including extended periods during Thanksgiving and the holiday season. The court's order required Kimberlee to relinquish custody on December 16th for a visitation that would last through the end of the month. However, Kimberlee failed to comply, ignoring the mandated handover at a designated police station. Kevin's attorney filed an emergency motion, which the court granted, compelling Kimberlee to appear with the children on December 20th. Kimberlee's refusal to follow court orders was more than an act of defiance. It was a prelude to her ultimate plan. Evidence suggests she viewed the court's decisions as a threat to her control and began formulating a desperate, destructive response. She reportedly told friends and acquaintances that she feared losing her children to Kevin, whom she painted as an abusive and unfit father, despite the lack of evidence to support these claims. The mounting legal pressure, combined with Kimberlee's paranoia and distorted sense of justice, created a volatile environment. By December 18th, the day authorities believed the murders occurred, Kimberlee had reached her breaking point. In her mind, the custody battle was no longer about co-parenting. It was a fight for survival, and she was prepared to go to horrifying lengths to ensure she didn't lose. As the Colorado Springs Police Department delved deeper into the events of December 19, 2023, their initial assessment of a burglary began to unravel. Forensic evidence at the scene painted a far different story. The presence of a blood-stained gun, spent cartridges, and a knife bearing both Kimberlee's and her children's DNA strongly contradicted her claim of an external assailant. Investigators combed through the apartment, noting the conspicuous absence of any signs of forced entry. The discovery of empty sleeping pill bottles in the kitchen trash pointed to a premeditated act. Toxicology reports later confirmed that Elianna and Aden had potentially toxic levels of doxylamine, an over-the-counter sleep aid, in their systems. Kimberlee's claim that her ex-husband, Kevin Wentz, was somehow responsible was also quickly debunked. GPS data from his work truck placed him in Denver during the time of the murders, giving him a rock-solid alibi. With Kevin cleared, attention turned fully to Kimberlee. The most damning revelation came from Kimberlee's surviving daughter, M.W. Initially, the 11-year-old had told police that a man had entered their home and attacked the family. However, after being placed in foster care, she disclosed a far more chilling account. She revealed that Kimberlee had orchestrated the entire incident, claiming divine instruction compelled her to act. M.W.'s testimony described how Kimberlee had laced the children's milk with a powdery substance, telling them it would help them sleep. She guided her children to the bedroom, instructing them to close their eyes before attacking them. Her older daughter's desperate pleas to stop were met with more violence, as Kimberlee slashed her neck twice with a knife. M.W. recounted that Kimberlee had a gun and believed their father was going to take them away if she didn't intervene. Confronted with overwhelming evidence, detectives secured an arrest warrant for Kimberlee on December 26, 2023. By then, however, she had fled. Kimberlee was last seen in Colorado Springs on December 23rd, and efforts to locate her in the United States proved fruitless. On December 30th, she was apprehended in a hotel in London's Chelsea district by the National Crime Agency. Her arrest marked the culmination of a multi-agency international manhunt. Kimberlee was taken into custody without incident, but her extradition to the United States would prove to be a protracted legal battle. The case had already captured national and international attention, with the disturbing details of the crime fueling widespread outrage and grief. Kimberlee Singler's arrest in London on December 30th, 2023, was only the beginning of an arduous legal process. Her capture was hailed as a significant breakthrough, but the extradition process would soon reveal itself as another emotionally charged chapter in this tragic case. As details of the murders emerged, they shocked not only the Colorado Springs community, but also the international audience following the case. Singler's legal team immediately mounted a defense against extradition to the United States, arguing that her potential sentence violated European human rights laws. Specifically, they invoked Article 3 of the European Convention on Human Rights, which prohibits inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment. Singler faced multiple charges, including 2 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of first-degree murder involving children under 12 by a person in a position of trust, charges that could result in life imprisonment without parole. Singler's lead counsel, Edward Fitzgerald, KC, a prominent defense attorney known for representing high-profile clients such as Julian Assange, argued that a mandatory life sentence without parole was inhumane. He claimed such a sentence failed to consider mitigating factors, including Kimberlee's history of mental health issues and the psychological toll of her contentious custody battle. He emphasized that commutation of such a sentence by the governor of Colorado was unlikely, describing it as political suicide. However, the prosecution, led by Joel Smith, KC, representing the U.S. government, presented compelling counterarguments. Smith cited precedents, including former Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper's commutation of several life sentences, to illustrate that executive clemency was a legitimate avenue for review. He also argued that the severity of Kimberlee's crimes warranted extradition, as they constituted premeditated acts of violence against her own children. Throughout the proceedings at Westminster Magistrates Court, the horrifying details of Kimberlee's alleged crimes were laid bare. Prosecutors detailed how she laced her children's milk with sleeping aids, guided them to their bedroom, and attacked them under the guise of divine instruction. The court also heard about her failed attempt to shift the blame to her ex-husband, Kevin Wentz, a claim swiftly disproven by his alibi and forensic evidence. On January 29, 2024, the court concluded its hearings. District Judge John Zani adjourned proceedings to review new evidence regarding potential clemency in Colorado and the broader implications of Singler's extradition. Observers predicted the decision would take weeks, if not months, given the case's complexity and high stakes. Meanwhile, the Colorado Springs community and the children's father, Kevin Wentz, anxiously awaited the outcome. Wentz, who had been embroiled in a bitter custody battle with Kimberlee, released a statement expressing his desire for justice and mourning the loss of his 2 youngest children. As the extradition decision loomed, the case continued to generate intense public interest. Support for the Wentz family poured in from across the nation, with many calling for systemic reforms to better protect children caught in contentious custody disputes. The legacy of this tragedy, however, remained deeply personal for those who knew and loved Elianna and Aden. The Colorado Springs community came together to support Kevin Wentz and MW in the wake of the tragedy. Fundraisers were organized to cover funeral expenses for Elianna and Aden and to provide resources for MW's recovery. A candlelight vigil held near the family's Palomino Ranch Point apartment drew hundreds of mourners, each carrying a candle as a symbol of remembrance. If extradited, Kimberlee would face a litany of charges in Colorado. Legal analysts speculated that her defense team might pursue an insanity plea, given her claims that God told her to do it. However, prosecutors were expected to argue premeditation, citing the calculated nature of her actions, the milk laced with sedatives, the staged burglary, and her subsequent flight from the U.S. The surviving daughter, MW, was likely to play a pivotal role as a witness. Her testimony, though traumatic, would provide direct insight into the events leading up to the murders. The question remained whether the defense would attempt to challenge the credibility of an 11-year-old survivor, a move that could alienate both the jury and public opinion. If you've been moved by this story, consider subscribing to our channel for more in-depth true crime narratives that not only tell the story, but also advocate for justice and awareness. By subscribing, you ensure that stories like Elianna's and Aden's are never forgotten, and that their lives continue to inspire meaningful change. Together, we can create a world where tragedies like this become a thing of the past. Hit that subscribe button and join us on this journey.